Sarah Martinez had always been different from other girls in her small Texas town. While her classmates spent afternoons at the mall or talking about boys, she could be found at her grandfather's ranch, lying flat on her stomach with a .22 rifle, practicing her aim at targets hundreds of yards away. The sound of gunfire was her lullaby, the smell of gunpowder her perfume. Her grandfather, Miguel Santos, was a Vietnam War veteran who had served as a sniper with the Marines. He saw something special in Sarah from the day she turned 8 and asked to hold his old service rifle. Her hands were steady, her breathing controlled, and, most importantly, she had the patience that most adults lacked. While other children would grow restless after minutes of stillness, Sarah could remain motionless for hours, watching and waiting. "Mija," he would tell her in his weathered voice, "shooting is only 10% of what makes a good sniper. The other 90% is up here," he would tap his temple with a calloused finger. "You have to think like the wind, predict like the weather, and be patient like the earth itself." Those lessons shaped Sarah's entire childhood. She learned to read wind patterns by watching grass sway, to judge distances by studying shadows, and to control her heartbeat through meditation techniques her grandfather had learned from an old Tibetan monk he'd met during the war. Every summer vacation was spent on the ranch, every weekend dedicated to improving her skills. By the time Sarah turned 16, she could consistently hit targets at distances that impressed even seasoned hunters in their community. Her high school shooting team dominated state competitions, with Sarah leading them to 3 consecutive championships. Local newspapers began featuring stories about the Wonder Girl of West Texas, and shooting magazines requested interviews with the teenager who could outshoot men twice her age. But Sarah's dreams extended far beyond local recognition. Every night before bed, she would study military websites, reading about famous snipers throughout history. She memorized the records of Chris Kyle, Craig Harrison, and Carlos Hathcock. She read about the legendary shots that changed battles and saved lives. Most importantly, she researched the Army Sniper School at Fort Benning, Georgia, the most elite training program in the world. The school's current longest shot record stood at 2,815 meters, achieved by Staff Sergeant Michael Thompson in 2019. Sarah would stare at that number on her computer screen, calculating wind drift and bullet drop in her head, imagining herself behind the rifle that made that impossible shot possible. She knew every detail about the Macmillan TAC-50 rifle used for the record, could recite its specifications like a prayer. Her parents, Maria and Roberto Martinez, had mixed feelings about their daughter's obsession. They were proud of her achievements but worried about her future. Maria worked as a nurse at the local hospital, while Roberto managed a construction crew. They had hoped Sarah might pursue medicine or engineering, something that seemed more suitable for a young woman. "Why don't you consider becoming a doctor like your mother wanted?" Roberto would ask during family dinners. "You have the steady hands and the intelligence for it." But Sarah's heart was set on military service. She spent her senior year of high school preparing for enlistment, maintaining perfect physical fitness scores and achieving academic excellence. Her guidance counselor, Mrs. Henderson, tried to convince her to apply for college scholarships, but Sarah had already made her decision. The day after graduation, Sarah walked into the local Army recruitment office. Staff Sergeant David Walsh, a burly man with kind eyes, had been expecting her. Word of the local shooting prodigy had reached him months earlier. "So you're the girl everyone's been talking about," he said with a smile. "I've seen your competition scores. Pretty impressive stuff." Sarah sat across from his desk, her back straight and her eyes focused. "I want to be a sniper, Sergeant. I want to attend the Army Sniper School." Staff Sergeant Walsh's expression grew serious. He had encountered many young recruits with grand ambitions, but most had unrealistic expectations about military life. However, Sarah's reputation preceded her, and her determination was evident. "The path to sniper school isn't easy," he explained. "First, you need to complete basic training, then advanced individual training, then serve with distinction in a combat unit. Only after proving yourself in the field can you apply for sniper training. And, even then, the selection process is brutal. Most candidates don't make it through the first week." Sarah nodded firmly. "I understand, Sergeant. I'm ready for whatever it takes." The recruitment process moved quickly. Sarah's physical fitness scores were exceptional, her ASVAB test results placed her in the top percentile, and her background check came back spotless. Within weeks, she had signed her enlistment papers and received her ship date to Fort Moore, Georgia for basic training. The night before leaving for basic training, Sarah sat with her grandfather on the ranch's back porch, watching the sun set over the endless Texas plains. The old man's health had been declining, but his mind remained sharp as ever. "Are you scared, Abuelo?" Sarah asked, using the childhood name she'd called him since she could speak. Miguel smiled and placed a weathered hand on her shoulder. "Fear is just another thing to control, Mija. I taught you to control your breathing, your heartbeat, your muscles. Fear is no different. You acknowledge it, respect it, but never let it make decisions for you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver medallion, the St. Barbara pendant he had carried through every mission in Vietnam. "Take this with you. St. Barbara protects those who serve with artillery and firearms. She'll watch over you when I cannot." Sarah clutched the medallion tightly, feeling its warm metal against her palm. "I'm going to make you proud, Abuelo. I'm going to break that record and show the world what we're capable of." The old man's eyes glistened with tears he refused to shed. "You already make me proud, Sarah. You have the heart of a warrior and the soul of a protector. That's all any soldier needs." Basic training at Fort Moore was everything Sarah had expected and more. The physical challenges pushed her body to its limits, but her years of ranch work and disciplined training had prepared her well. While other recruits struggled with the early morning runs and obstacle courses, Sarah excelled, often finishing first in physical fitness tests. The mental challenges proved equally demanding. Drill sergeants screamed insults designed to break down civilian attitudes and rebuild military mindset. Sarah's quiet confidence and respectful demeanor earned grudging respect from even the harshest instructors. During weapons training, Sarah's exceptional marksmanship skills became immediately apparent. While other recruits struggled to qualify with the standard M4 carbine, Sarah consistently scored perfect marks. Her drill instructor, Sergeant First Class Jennifer Rodriguez, pulled her aside after one particularly impressive range session. "Where did you learn to shoot like that, Private Martinez?" Rodriguez asked with genuine curiosity. "My grandfather taught me, Drill Sergeant," Sarah replied, maintaining the required position of attention. Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "Well, he taught you well. Have you given thought to what military occupational specialty you want to pursue?" Sarah's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. "I want to be an infantryman, drill sergeant. Eventually, I hope to attend sniper school." For a moment, Rodriguez's expression softened. She had served 2 tours in Afghanistan and understood the realities of combat that many young recruits romanticized. "Sniper school is the toughest training the Army offers, Private. Most men don't make it through. Are you sure you're ready for that level of challenge?" Sarah met the sergeant's gaze directly. "I've been preparing for this my entire life, Drill Sergeant. I'm ready." Rodriguez studied the young soldier for a long moment, seeing something in Sarah's eyes that reminded her of the best warriors she had served with, not just skill, but unwavering determination and absolute dedication to excellence. "We'll see, Private Martinez. We'll see." The weeks of basic training flew by in a blur of early morning reveille, grueling physical training, weapons instruction, and field exercises. Sarah adapted quickly to military life, finding purpose and structure that aligned perfectly with her disciplined upbringing. She formed strong bonds with her fellow recruits, earning respect through her willingness to help struggling soldiers improve their marksmanship skills. During the final week of basic training, Sarah received devastating news. A phone call from her mother informed her that her grandfather had suffered a heart attack and been hospitalized. The doctors weren't sure if he would recover. Sarah requested emergency leave to return home, but Miguel had left strict instructions through Maria that Sarah was not to interrupt her training. "Tell my granddaughter that a soldier never abandons her mission," he had whispered from his hospital bed. "She will see me when her duty is complete." With a heavy heart, Sarah remained at Fort Moore, channeling her worry and grief into even more intense focus during training exercises. The night before graduation, she called the hospital and spoke with her grandfather's doctor. "How is he, doctor?" she asked, gripping the phone tightly. "He's stable for now," Dr. Patterson replied gently. "But his condition is serious. His heart is very weak. He keeps asking about you, though. Wants to know how your training is going." Sarah closed her eyes, fighting back tears. "Tell him I'm graduating tomorrow with honors. Tell him I'm one step closer to sniper school." "I will, Sarah. He'll be proud to hear that." Graduation day arrived with crisp morning air and crystal clear skies. Sarah stood in formation with her fellow soldiers, wearing her dress blue uniform with pride. As the company commander called her name and she stepped forward to receive her certificate, she touched the St. Barbara medallion hidden beneath her uniform and whispered a silent promise to her grandfather. The next phase of her journey would take her to Fort Cavazos, Texas for advanced individual training as an infantryman. It was there that she would learn the advanced combat skills necessary to serve in a frontline unit. More importantly, it was there that she would begin building the military record necessary to apply for sniper school. As the bus pulled away from Fort Moore, Sarah stared out the window at the Georgia countryside, her mind already focused on the challenges ahead. She had successfully completed the first step toward her ultimate goal, but she knew the hardest trials were still to come. In her pocket, the silver medallion seemed to grow warm against her fingers, as if carrying her grandfather's blessing across the miles. Sarah Martinez was no longer just a girl with a dream, she was a soldier with a mission. And nothing would stop her from achieving it. Fort Cavazos stretched endlessly under the Texas sun, its red dirt and scrub brush a familiar sight that reminded Sarah of home. Advanced individual training for infantry soldiers was designed to transform basic trainees into combat-ready warriors, and Sarah threw herself into every challenge with unwavering determination. The training was more intense than basic, focusing on advanced marksmanship, combat tactics, field medicine, and survival skills. Sarah's instructors quickly recognized her exceptional abilities, particularly during live-fire exercises where her precision with various weapon systems set her apart from other trainees. Staff Sergeant Marcus Thompson, the senior marksmanship instructor, had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and had worked alongside Army snipers. He noticed Sarah's potential immediately during the first advanced rifle training session. "Martinez," he called out after she had fired a perfect group at 500 meters with iron sights. "Where did you say you learned to shoot?" Sarah lowered her rifle and turned to face the instructor. "My grandfather taught me, Staff Sergeant. He was a sniper in Vietnam." Thompson nodded thoughtfully. He had heard stories about the old-school Marine snipers from Vietnam, legendary figures who had learned their craft in the jungles of Southeast Asia. "What unit was he with?" "1st Battalion, 3rd Marines, Staff Sergeant. He served 2 tours between 1968 and 1970. The instructor's eyes widened with recognition. "Miguel Santos? The ghost of Hill 881? Sarah's heart jumped. She had heard whispers of her grandfather's nickname but had never known the full story. "You knew my grandfather?" "Knew of him," Thompson replied with newfound respect. "His record speaks for itself. 43 confirmed kills in some of the worst fighting of the war. Your grandfather is a legend in sniper circles." He paused, studying Sarah with new eyes. "I can see why you want to follow in his footsteps." That conversation marked a turning point in Sarah's training. Staff Sergeant Thompson began providing additional instruction after regular training hours, teaching her advanced techniques that wouldn't normally be covered until sniper school itself. He showed her how to calculate wind drift at extreme distances, how to compensate for the Coriolis effect on long-range shots, and, most importantly, how to develop the mental discipline required for precision shooting under pressure. "Sniping isn't just about pulling a trigger," Thompson explained during one evening session. "It's about becoming invisible, thinking 3 steps ahead of your target, and making impossible shots when lives depend on it." Your grandfather understood that. The question is, do you? Sarah proved her understanding through action rather than words. During field training exercises, she consistently outperformed soldiers with years more experience. Her ability to remain motionless for hours while conducting surveillance impressed even the most demanding instructors. More importantly, she demonstrated the kind of tactical thinking that separated good soldiers from exceptional ones. The highlight of her AIT experience came during the culminating field exercise, a week-long simulation of combat operations in a mock Middle Eastern village. Sarah's unit was tasked with clearing buildings and eliminating high-value targets while minimizing civilian casualties. It was during this exercise that she first encountered the reality of combat decision-making under pressure. On the third day of the exercise, Sarah's squad was pinned down by simulated enemy fire from a building 800 meters away. The enemy was actually a team of instructors using paintball rounds, but the scenario was designed to test soldiers' ability to think and act under stress. The squad leader, a young sergeant named Williams, was struggling to develop an effective response. The simulated enemy position was too well fortified for a direct assault, and calling for artillery support would take too long. Sarah studied the situation through her rifle scope, noting wind patterns, calculating distances, and identifying potential shot angles. She keyed her radio and contacted Sergeant Williams. "Sergeant, I have a clear shot on the primary target from this position. Request permission to engage." Williams hesitated. The distance was beyond what most soldiers could accurately engage with standard equipment. "Martinez, that's an 800-meter shot with iron sights. Are you sure you can make it?" Sarah adjusted her position slightly, feeling the wind direction change. "Affirmative, Sergeant. I can make the shot." The permission came through, and Sarah settled into her firing position. She controlled her breathing, feeling her heartbeat slow as she entered the focused state her grandfather had taught her. The crosshairs settled on the target, and she gently squeezed the trigger. The paintball struck the instructor playing the enemy sniper directly in the chest, marking a kill shot that would have been impossible for most soldiers to achieve. The exercise controllers immediately called target down, and Sarah's squad was able to advance and complete their mission. Later that evening, the exercise controllers debriefed the scenario with all participating units. The instructor who had been killed by Sarah's shot, Master Sergeant Kevin Davis, addressed her directly. "Private Martinez, that was an exceptional shot. 800 meters with iron sights, accounting for wind and elevation. That's sniper-level marksmanship." He paused, consulting his notes. "I'm going to recommend you for advanced marksmanship training. Have you considered applying for sniper school?" Sarah's heart raced, but she maintained her professional demeanor. "That's my goal, Master Sergeant. I want to be the best sniper the Army has ever seen." Davis smiled and nodded. "Well, you've got the skills for it. Make sure your leadership knows about your aspirations. Sometimes the best soldiers don't get opportunities because they don't speak up." The remainder of AIT passed quickly, with Sarah graduating at the top of her class and earning the coveted expert infantry badge. Her instructor's recommendations would follow her to her first duty assignment, where she hoped to gain the combat experience necessary to apply for sniper school. Sarah's first assignment took her to the 1st Infantry Division at Fort Riley, Kansas. The division was preparing for deployment to Afghanistan, where they would conduct counterinsurgency operations in one of the most dangerous provinces in the country. The 1st Infantry Division had a proud history stretching back to World War I, and Sarah was assigned to Alpha Company, 2nd Battalion, 16th Infantry Regiment, the Rangers. The company commander, Captain James Morrison, was a West Point graduate with 2 previous deployments who believed in leading from the front. Sarah's reputation had preceded her to Fort Riley. Her AIT instructors had sent glowing recommendations, and word of her exceptional marksmanship skills spread quickly through the battalion. However, being known as an exceptional soldier also meant facing higher expectations and occasional skepticism from peers who wondered if she could perform under actual combat conditions. Her squad leader, Staff Sergeant Robert Chen, was a veteran of multiple deployments who had seen many promising soldiers struggle when faced with the reality of combat. He was determined to ensure that Sarah was fully prepared for what lay ahead. "I don't care how well you can shoot on a range, Martinez," Chen told her during their first meeting. "Combat is different. When people are shooting back at you, when your buddies are bleeding, when everything is chaos and confusion, that's when we find out what kind of soldier you really are." Sarah accepted the challenge with characteristic determination. She threw herself into every training exercise, learning urban combat techniques, improvised explosive device recognition, and the complex rules of engagement that governed modern warfare. Most importantly, she worked to build trust and cohesion with her fellow soldiers. Her squad consisted of 9 soldiers with varying levels of experience. There was Private First Class Tommy Rodriguez, a young soldier from California who had joined the Army to gain technical skills for a civilian career. Specialist Mark Johnson was a quiet soldier from rural Montana who had grown up hunting and understood Sarah's background. Private Daniel Kim was a college graduate who had enlisted after September 11 and possessed strong analytical skills that made him valuable for intelligence gathering. Building relationships with her fellow soldiers proved challenging at first. Some questioned whether a woman could handle the physical and emotional demands of combat infantry service. Others wondered if her exceptional marksmanship skills meant she thought herself superior to the rest of the squad. Sarah addressed these concerns through consistent performance and unwavering support for her teammates. During training exercises, she volunteered for the most dangerous assignments and always prioritized mission success over personal recognition. When soldiers struggled with marksmanship training, she offered patient instruction without condescension. The breakthrough came during a particularly challenging field training exercise designed to simulate the stress and confusion of urban combat. Sarah's squad was tasked with clearing a series of buildings while under simulated enemy fire. During the exercise, Private Rodriguez was wounded by a simulated improvised explosive device and required immediate medical attention. Without hesitation, Sarah exposed herself to enemy fire to reach Rodriguez's position and provide first aid. She applied a tourniquet to his simulated injuries while directing covering fire from other squad members. Her quick thinking and selfless actions not only saved Rodriguez's life in the simulation but also demonstrated her commitment to her fellow soldiers. Staff Sergeant Chun observed the entire sequence and later pulled Sarah aside for a private conversation. "That was good work today, Martinez. You showed what being a soldier really means, taking care of your people no matter what." Sarah nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Staff Sergeant. These soldiers are my family now. I'll do whatever it takes to bring everyone home safely." Chen smiled and clapped her on the shoulder. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Now, let's talk about your long-term goals. I hear you want to go to sniper school." The conversation that followed would prove crucial to Sarah's future. Staff Sergeant Chen explained that sniper school applications required endorsements from commanding officers, demonstrated combat experience, and a track record of exceptional performance under pressure. More importantly, he revealed that the battalion was looking to send a soldier to sniper school after their upcoming deployment. "If you perform well in Afghanistan," Chen explained, "and if you prove yourself in actual combat conditions, I'll personally recommend you for sniper training. But, understand, combat will test you in ways that no training exercise can simulate." "Are you ready for that?" Sarah met his gaze steadily. "I've been preparing for this my entire life, Staff Sergeant. I won't let you down." The months of pre-deployment training flew by quickly. Sarah mastered every weapon system in the company's arsenal, from the standard M4 carbine to heavy machine guns and anti-tank weapons. She learned to operate in the extreme heat and dust of desert environments, to navigate using both modern GPS systems and traditional map and compass techniques. Most importantly, she continued developing the advanced marksmanship skills that would eventually set her apart. During one memorable training exercise, she successfully engaged targets at 1,200 meters using a standard infantry rifle, a distance that impressed even the most experienced soldiers in the battalion. The night before deployment, Sarah called her mother to check on her grandfather's condition. Miguel's health had stabilized somewhat, but he remained in the hospital, his once strong body weakened by his failing heart. "How is he today, Mom?" Sarah asked, gripping the phone tightly. "He's awake and alert," Maria replied softly. "He asks about you constantly. He wants to know when you're deploying." "Tomorrow morning. Tell him I'm ready. Tell him I remember everything he taught me." There was a pause before her mother spoke again. Sarah, he wants to talk to you. The doctors say the phone call might tire him too much, but he insists. A few moments later, Sarah heard her grandfather's familiar voice, though it was weaker than she remembered. Mija? Is that really you? Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, but she kept her voice strong. It's me, abuelo. I'm deploying tomorrow. Good, Miguel whispered. You're ready. I can hear it in your voice. Remember what I taught you about patience, about breathing, about thinking like the wind. I remember everything, abuelo. I'm going to make you proud. You already have, Mija. You already have. Now go show the world what a Santos can do with a rifle. The phone call ended, and Sarah sat in her barracks room, holding the St. Barbara medallion and feeling the weight of her family's legacy on her shoulders. Tomorrow, she would begin the combat deployment that would determine whether she had earned the right to pursue her ultimate goal. As she packed her equipment for the long flight to Afghanistan, Sarah mentally reviewed everything she had learned about long-range shooting. The current longest sniper shot record of 2,815 meters seemed almost impossible, but she had studied the ballistics tables and understood the physics involved. With the right equipment, perfect conditions, and exceptional skill, such a shot was theoretically possible. One day, she whispered to herself as she secured her rifle in its case. One day, I'll show them what's really possible. The deployment to Afghanistan would test every skill Sarah had developed and every lesson she had learned. It would also provide the combat experience necessary to apply for sniper school if she survived the crucible of warfare that awaited her in the mountains and valleys of one of the world's most dangerous countries. The C-130 transport aircraft descended through the thin air above Bagram Airfield, Afghanistan, carrying Sarah and her fellow soldiers into a war zone that would test everything they had learned during training. The landscape below looked like something from another planet, endless mountains, deep valleys, and scattered patches of green that marked human settlements in the otherwise barren terrain. Sarah pressed her face against the small window, studying the geography that would become her battlefield for the next 15 months. The mountains reminded her of the hill country around her grandfather's ranch, but these peaks were taller, more forbidding, and held dangers that no Texas ranch could prepare her for. Alpha Company was assigned to Forward Operating Base Chapman, located in Khost Province near the Pakistani border. The base was a sprawling collection of concrete barriers, prefabricated buildings, and defensive positions carved out of the hostile landscape. It housed approximately 800 soldiers from various units, along with Afghan National Army partners and civilian contractors. The company commander, Captain Morrison, gathered his soldiers in a dusty briefing room within hours of their arrival. Maps covered the walls, showing the complex terrain they would be operating in and the locations of known enemy activity. "Gentlemen and Lady," Morrison began, nodding toward Sarah, "welcome to one of the most dangerous areas of operation in Afghanistan. Our mission is to disrupt insurgent activity, train Afghan forces, and protect the local population from Taliban intimidation. The enemy knows this terrain better than we do, they've been fighting here for decades, and they don't play by the same rules we do." He pointed to a series of red marks on the map. These indicate locations of recent IED attacks, ambushes, and sniper activity. The Taliban have some very skilled marksmen operating in these mountains, and they've been targeting our forces with increasing frequency. Stay alert, follow your training, and watch out for each other. Sarah studied the map intently, noting elevation markers, potential sniper positions, and the complex network of valleys that provided concealment for enemy movements. Her mind automatically calculated sightlines and ranges, a habit developed through years of training with her grandfather. Staff Sergeant Chen addressed the squad after the briefing. "This isn't training anymore, people. From the moment we leave the wire, we're in enemy territory. Martinez, you'll be our designated marksman for now. That means you'll carry the M14 enhanced battle rifle instead of the standard M4. Think you can handle the extra responsibility?" Sarah felt a surge of excitement mixed with nervous energy. The M14 EBR was a precision rifle capable of engaging targets at distances far beyond the range of standard infantry weapons. It was one step closer to the sniper rifle she ultimately hoped to master. "Absolutely, Staff Sergeant. I won't let the squad down." Chen nodded approvingly. Good. Remember, as the designated marksman, you're responsible for identifying threats at long range and taking out targets that other soldiers can't reach. It's a big responsibility. The first few weeks at FOB Chapman involved routine patrols through nearby villages, establishing relationships with local leaders, and gathering intelligence on Taliban activity. Sarah quickly adapted to the rhythm of combat operations, learning to read the subtle signs that indicated potential threats. The Afghan terrain was both beautiful and treacherous. Ancient villages clung to mountainsides like something from biblical times, while deep valleys provided perfect ambush sites for enemy fighters. The local population was cautious around American forces, caught between Taliban intimidation and the promise of government protection. During her third week in country, Sarah's squad was conducting a routine patrol through the village of Kalat when Staff Sergeant Chen noticed unusual activity. The normal sounds of daily life, children playing, merchants calling out their wares, women talking as they worked, had fallen silent. "Something's not right," Chen muttered into his radio. "The village feels wrong. Everyone's disappeared." Sarah scanned the surrounding hills through her rifle scope, searching for any sign of enemy activity. Her grandfather's training kicked in automatically: control your breathing, think like the wind, be patient like the earth. She methodically examined every possible sniper position, every ridgeline that could conceal enemy fighters. "Staff Sergeant," she called softly, "I've got movement on the ridgeline, about 1,100 meters to the northeast. Looks like someone with a rifle." Chen moved to her position and peered through his binoculars. After several minutes of careful observation, he spotted what Sarah had seen: a figure in traditional Afghan clothing moving between rocks, carrying what appeared to be a rifle. "Good eyes, Martinez. Can you make the shot from here?" Sarah studied the target through her scope, calculating wind drift, elevation, and the challenge of engaging a moving target at extreme range. The shot was at the absolute limit of her rifle's effective range, but her training and natural ability made it possible. "I can make it, Staff Sergeant. But I need a few minutes to set up properly." Chen coordinated with the rest of the squad to provide security while Sarah prepared for what would be her first combat shot. She found a stable firing position behind a low stone wall, adjusted her scope for the range and environmental conditions, and settled into the meditative state her grandfather had taught her. The target appeared again, this time pausing for several seconds while scanning the village below. Sarah centered her crosshairs, compensated for wind drift, and gently squeezed the trigger. The rifle's report echoed across the valley, and, through her scope, Sarah saw the target fall backward behind the rocks. There was no movement for several minutes, confirming that her shot had found its mark. "Target down," she reported calmly, though her heart was racing with the adrenaline of her first combat engagement. Chen called for the squad to move out quickly, knowing that the sound of gunfire would alert other enemy fighters to their position. As they moved through the village toward their extraction point, several Afghan civilians emerged from buildings where they had been hiding. An elderly man approached Chen and spoke rapidly in Pashto. The squad's interpreter, Sergeant Ahmad Nazir, translated the conversation. "He says the Taliban fighter had been terrorizing this village for weeks," Nazir explained. "He was demanding food and money from families who could barely feed themselves. The villagers are grateful that we eliminated the threat." That night, back at FOB Chapman, Sarah lay on her cot reflecting on her first combat kill. She felt no joy or satisfaction, only a grim understanding that she had done what was necessary to protect innocent people. Her grandfather had warned her that taking a life, even in combat, would affect her deeply. "The taking of life is never something to celebrate, Mija," he had told her years earlier. "But sometimes it is necessary to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is the burden and the honor of being a warrior." Staff Sergeant Chen found Sarah sitting alone in the dining facility later that evening. "How are you holding up, Martinez? First combat kill can be tough to process." Sarah looked up from her untouched meal. "I keep thinking about my grandfather's words, Staff Sergeant. He told me that being a sniper means carrying the weight of every shot you take." "I understand what he meant now." Chen nodded with understanding. "That's a healthy attitude. The soldiers who enjoy killing are the ones you have to worry about. The fact that you're thinking seriously about what happened today tells me you're going to be a good sniper someday. Over the following months, Sarah's reputation as an exceptional marksman grew throughout the battalion. She successfully engaged enemy fighters at distances that amazed even experienced soldiers, often making shots that prevented ambushes or protected civilian populations. Her most significant engagement came during a major operation to clear Taliban fighters from a strategic valley that controlled access to several important villages. Intelligence indicated that a group of foreign fighters, including experienced snipers, had established positions in the high ground overlooking the valley. Sarah's squad was part of a larger force tasked with clearing these positions. As they approached the target area, enemy fire began raining down from multiple locations in the rocks above them. The Taliban had prepared well, creating interlocking fields of fire that pinned down the American forces in exposed terrain. Captain Morrison called for air support, but the weather conditions made close air support impossible. Artillery fire was ruled out due to the proximity of friendly forces. The mission seemed destined to fail unless someone could eliminate the enemy sniper positions that were preventing the advance. Martinez, Staff Sergeant Chen called over the radio, "I need you to find those snipers and take them out. We can't move until someone deals with them." Sarah low-crawled to a position that provided a clear view of the enemy positions while offering some protection from return fire. Through her scope, she began methodically searching the rocky terrain for any sign of enemy snipers. The first target revealed himself when muzzle flash from his rifle briefly illuminated his position during a burst of automatic fire. Sarah calculated the range at approximately 1,400 meters, an extremely challenging shot even under ideal conditions. She controlled her breathing and waited for the perfect moment. When the enemy sniper paused to reload, Sarah centered her crosshairs and fired. The .308 caliber bullet traveled across the valley in less than 2 seconds, striking the target center mass and eliminating the threat. The second sniper proved more elusive, firing from a different position with each shot to avoid detection. Sarah studied the pattern of his fire, trying to predict where he would appear next. Finally, she spotted movement between two large boulders and realized the sniper was using a natural crevice to move between firing positions. When the enemy fighter next appeared, Sarah was ready. Her shot struck him as he was raising his rifle, ending his threat to the advancing American forces. With the sniper threat eliminated, the rest of the operation proceeded successfully. The valley was cleared of enemy fighters, and several important villages were secured for the Afghan government. Later that evening, Captain Morrison approached Sarah personally. "Outstanding work today, Private First Class Martinez. Your shooting saved American lives and made this mission possible. I'm putting you in for a Bronze Star Medal." Sarah felt a surge of pride, but her thoughts immediately turned to her grandfather. She wondered if he had received similar recognition for his actions in Vietnam, and whether he would be proud of what she had accomplished. "Thank you, sir. I was just doing my job." Morrison smiled. "The best soldiers always say that. Martinez, I want to talk to you about your future. Staff Sergeant Chen tells me you want to attend sniper school. Based on what I've seen, I think you're ready. I'm going to recommend you for the next available slot." Sarah's heart leaped with excitement, but she maintained her professional composure. "Thank you, sir. That means everything to me. You've earned it. But, understand, sniper school is a different level of training entirely. The physical and mental demands are extreme, and the standards are unforgiving. Are you prepared for that level of challenge?" Sarah thought of her grandfather lying in a hospital bed back in Texas, of the promise she had made to break the longest shot record, of all the training and sacrifice that had brought her to this moment. "I'm ready, sir. I've been preparing for this my entire life."